Let me tell you something brutally honest. If you think God is going to drop millions into your lap just because you prayed with fire, fasted for 40 days, or sowed a seed to some shady prophet online, you might as well be waiting for rain in the desert with a bucket and no clouds in sight. See, divine wealth doesn't come because you shouted Amen louder than your neighbor. It comes with preparation, with signs, with divine fingerprints all over your journey. God doesn't give wealth as a trophy. He gives it as a tool, a test, a trust. And before the gold falls, He checks if your character can carry the weight without sinking your soul. In this video, I'm going to walk you through 10 powerful signs that God may be preparing to bless you with wealth. And not just the have a good weekend type of money, but legacy-changing, generation-shifting, kingdom-impacting abundance. Each point will punch. Each truth will stretch you. And by the end, you won't just pray for wealth, you'll prepare for it. Let's dive in. Point 1. You are being tested with little. And you're passing the test silently. Let me say it loud for the people in the back. If you mishandle little, God won't trust you with much. Luke 16 verse 10 NIV says it clearly. Whoever can be trusted with very little can also be trusted with much. And whoever is dishonest with very little will also be dishonest with much. Now pause. Think. Are you the type who borrows 1,000 Kenyan shillings and never pays back, but still fasts for financial breakthrough? Are you the type who eats the tithe, robs God, but prays for divine increase? Wealth begins with management, not miracles. Before Joseph managed Pharaoh's economy, he had to manage prison duties. He didn't wait until he was in the palace to be excellent. He was excellent even when forgotten in jail. Let me give you a raw example. There's a woman I know who earned less than $100 a month. But every single coin had a plan. She saved. She tithed. She gave. And one day, through a small business idea she almost ignored, boom. A door opened. Years later, she runs a 6-figure export company. Faithfulness with little is God's litmus test. If you're managing your small job, tiny salary, or humble business with integrity, discipline, and excellence, you are already waving a divine flag that says, I'm ready for more. God is watching how you treat the crumbs before He gives you the whole bakery. Point 2. You're generous even in lack. Your giving doesn't wait for overflow. Let's be honest. Many people say they'll be generous when they get rich. But if you're stingy with 100 shillings, let's not lie to ourselves, you'll be even stingier with 1,000,000. Let me give you a bitter truth wrapped in love. God doesn't bless us to be generous. He blesses those who are already generous. He looks at your current capacity to let go, even when it hurts. Proverbs 11 verses 24 to 25, NIV puts it beautifully. One person gives freely, yet gains even more. Another withholds unduly, but comes to poverty. A generous person will prosper. Whoever refreshes others will be refreshed. Let me paint you a picture. There's a widow. She has only 2 small copper coins left. 2. That's it. Not enough for even a piece of bread. But what does she do? She walks into the temple and gives them to God. Jesus didn't just smile. He stopped everything and said, "This woman has given more than everyone else." Luke 21 verses 1 to 4. Meanwhile, rich folks were throwing in their extras. Their leftovers. Their non-painful giving. But she gave from lack. She gave everything. And that, my friend, is the heartbeat of a wealthy soul. Now let me come closer to your real life. Are you the type who gives only when it's convenient? Do you say, "I'll tithe when I get a better job"? Do you avoid helping others because times are hard, while still spending on luxuries? Here's a wake-up call. If your generosity depends on your bank balance, it's not generosity, it's convenience. Look around. Some of the wealthiest people in the world started giving long before the millions came. Oprah Winfrey gave to students when she had barely anything. Tyler Perry housed homeless people when he was still living in a car. Biblical Boaz was a rich man. But his wealth increased because of how he treated the poor, allowing Ruth to glean freely in his field. God watches how you treat others when you're still bleeding. He observes whether you can be a stream, not a dam, even when you feel dry. He wants to see if you can pour out when it doesn't make mathematical sense. And the moment he confirms that your heart is detached from greed, boom, the dam of blessings begins to overflow. Malachi 3 verse 10 doesn't just say, "Tithe and I will bless you." It says, "I will open the windows of heaven and pour out so much blessing you won't have room for it." But the key is, you move first. So, if lately you've been giving quietly, generously, and from a place of not enough, don't you dare think God hasn't noticed. You are sowing seeds into eternity, and the harvest is coming. It's not just a sign of future wealth. It's a sign of current faith. And faith moves heaven like nothing else. Point 3. You're receiving divine ideas and strategies, downloads from heaven. Now listen carefully. Before money ever shows up in your account, before you build that business, before you sign that deal, God often gives you an idea. Not cash. Not a fat check. Not a rich uncle. But a spark. A whisper. A concept that won't leave your spirit alone. Deuteronomy 8 verse 18 NIV says, "But remember the Lord your God, for it is He who gives you the ability to produce wealth." Did you catch that? He doesn't necessarily give you wealth straight away. He gives you the ability to create it. That ability often comes in the form of strategies, visions, and instructions that make no sense to the natural eye. Let me take you to the Bible. Noah was told to build a ship in the middle of dry land. People laughed. But that crazy idea became the world's greatest survival strategy. Joseph interpreted Pharaoh's dream, and instantly, God gave him an economic strategy that saved Egypt from a 7-year famine. That single idea moved him from prison to prime minister in a heartbeat. Jacob was working for a tricky boss, Laban, who kept changing his wages. But God gave Jacob a strange idea. Involving striped sticks and mating sheep, Genesis 30. Sounds wild, right? But boom. Suddenly, Jacob's livestock multiplied. He left with more wealth than the man who had oppressed him for years. Here's what I'm telling you. You may not have the money yet. But if you've been receiving clear, innovative, strategic ideas, you're already wealthy in seed form. God is not in the business of throwing money from the skies. He gives visions that birth provision. A business idea that keeps resurfacing every time you pray. A burden to solve a problem in society that no one else seems to see. A unique gifting, writing, teaching, farming, designing, mentoring, that you keep pushing aside because it doesn't look profitable yet. Let me challenge you. What if what you keep ignoring as just a thought is heaven screaming? That's the goldmine I gave you. Look, even in the world of tech, how did Facebook, Amazon, Apple, and Tesla begin? With an idea. A crazy, unshaped, doubted idea. But someone believed in it. They worked it. Grew it. Sacrificed for it. You want God to bless you with millions? He's already started. That burning idea in your chest. That's Him speaking. That plan that keeps you up at night. That's Him preparing you for wealth. And here's the kicker. Ideas from God don't just create income. They create impact. They feed the hungry. Solve real problems. Elevate people. Advance the kingdom. If you've been receiving these divine downloads lately, stop brushing them off. They are not just thoughts. They are treasures. And if you treat them with reverence and action, wealth will chase you like mercy and goodness chased David. Point 4. Doors are opening without struggle. Divine favor in action. Let me start with a hard truth that will slap some sense and stir your spirit. When it's your season, you won't have to knock down doors. God opens them while you're still adjusting your shoes. Ever walked into a place and felt like everything was already prepared for you? The right person just happened to be there. The timing was strangely perfect. You didn't have the qualifications, but somehow they still picked you. That's not luck. That's not coincidence. That's not manifesting. That's favor. pure, unfiltered, undeserved favor. Revelation 3 verse 8 NIV says, "See, I have placed before you an open door that no one can shut." Let that settle deep. When God is about to bless you with great wealth, He doesn't always start by sending a bag of money. He starts by unlocking access. He introduces key people. He shuts down distractions and opens up unusual platforms, opportunities, and networks. Let's step into Scripture. Esther was a Jewish orphan raised by her uncle Mordecai in a foreign land. She had zero political connections, no royal blood, no influencer following. But one day, just one day, the king looked at her and saw a queen. What opened the door? Divine favor. What secured her future? Strategic positioning by God. What changed her life? Access. And that favor didn't just enrich her, it saved an entire nation. Let's talk about David. One day he's delivering bread and cheese to his brothers on the battlefield. Just a shepherd boy with no military training. But then boom, Goliath falls and suddenly he's the nation's hero. From the field to the palace in one day. No bribe. No hustle. No campaign posters. Just a divine setup. My friend, when you begin to experience effortless elevation, know that something heavy is brewing in the spiritual realm. Have you ever had things just work out and you couldn't explain how? Did a stranger ever recommend you to someone powerful without you even applying? Did a client, investor, or mentor show up at just the right time, when you were about to give up? That's not normal. That's favor. And it's one of the boldest signs that God is preparing to entrust you with wealth. But let me warn you, this kind of favor is not just for comfort. It's for assignment. God doesn't open doors so you can just flex on Instagram and drink juice on a yacht. He opens them so you can walk in and shift atmospheres. Be a light. Fund kingdom causes. Create jobs. Uplift others. Favor is not for status. It's for stewardship. Now here's something wild. When favor begins to manifest, jealousy follows closely. People will say, "Who does she think she is? How did he get that deal? It must be connections or witchcraft." Ignore the noise. Focus on the mission. Because when God opens a door, even the haters become unintentional ushers. They announce you while trying to pull you down. So if right now things are aligning without effort, strategic helpers are emerging. You're receiving invitations you didn't ask for. And you feel like you're standing in the right place at the right time again and again. Don't doubt it. Don't sabotage it. Don't apologize for it. That's not you being lucky. That's God saying, "I'm setting the stage. Get ready for more." Point 5. Your character is being refined. God is polishing you before promoting you. Let's be honest. It's easy to handle poverty with humility. Because there's not much to boast about when you're broke, right? But can you handle wealth without becoming a walking billboard of pride, arrogance, and spiritual blindness? Here's a powerful principle. God would rather delay your wealth than watch it destroy your soul. Psalm 66 verses 10 to 12, NIV says, "For you, God, tested us. You refined us like silver. We went through fire and water, but you brought us to a place of abundance." Read that again. He didn't say a place of survival or a place of struggle. He said a place of abundance. But before that abundance came, what happened? Fire. Testing. Refining. Let's break it down like this. You're overlooked at work. God is humbling you. You are misunderstood even though you're honest. God is teaching you endurance and grace. You're dealing with betrayal, unfair treatment, or delays. God is strengthening your spiritual backbone. Why? Because your next level of wealth requires next level character. Let's look at a biblical beast, Joseph. Before Joseph touched power, he tasted pain. He had dreams of greatness. But instead of fast-tracking him to Pharaoh's court, God allowed him to be thrown in a pit by his brothers. Then sold as a slave. Then falsely accused and imprisoned for something he didn't do. Why? because Joseph's coat was colorful but his character still needed ironing. And when the refinement was complete, bam! In one day, God moved him from prison to palace. And guess what? Joseph didn't abuse that power. He didn't say, now it's payback time. Instead, he forgave. He fed nations. He saved his family. Because wealth without wisdom is a weapon of self-destruction. And power without patience leads to pride. Let's go real life for a moment. How many celebrities, athletes, or lottery winners made millions only to end up broke, divorced, addicted, or dead? Not because they weren't talented. Not because they weren't lucky. But because their wealth grew faster than their character. Now, if lately you've been going through uncomfortable lessons, you feel like everything is taking longer than it should. God seems silent and you're being stretched emotionally, spiritually, and mentally. Celebrate. Rejoice. Don't quit. Because God disciplines those He loves. He trims egos, humbles attitudes, breaks pride, dismantles entitlement, so that when the money comes, the man or woman who receives it doesn't crumble under it. Let me leave you with this. Diamonds don't form in daylight. They form under pressure. And God's refining pressure isn't punishment. It's proof that something valuable is forming. So if God is pruning you, stretching you, correcting you, don't resist it. Because what is doing in you is bigger than what is preparing for you. Point 6. You are drawn to purpose over profit. Your heart is shifting from money to mission. Let's get real for a second. Most people chase money. They run after it like a thirsty dog chasing a car. They switch jobs, abandon morals, stab friends, and even sell their souls, all in the name of securing the bag. But let me tell you something raw and sacred. When God is preparing to bless you with real wealth, your obsession with money begins to die. You stop asking, how much will I make? And start asking, whose life will this impact? Matthew 6 verse 33, NIV says, "But seek first His kingdom and His righteousness, and all these things will be given to you as well." In other words, focus on purpose and the profit will chase you. Let's talk about Nehemiah. He had a prestigious, comfortable job as the king's cupbearer. But when he heard that Jerusalem's walls were in ruins, his heart broke. He didn't say, how much will I be paid to fix them? He said, God, use me. I'll go. That man left his comfort zone, embraced a construction project filled with opposition, and rebuilt an entire city not for a paycheck, but for purpose. And guess what? God didn't just supply the tools. He moved the king to fund the whole mission. When your heart is right, even ungodly people will write you checks for your purpose. Now, let's flip to modern times. Mother Teresa didn't chase money, she chased hurting people. And guess what? Nations donated. Billions flowed. Why? Because when you serve with clean hands and a pure heart, God funds what He favors. Rick Warren, author of The Purpose-Driven Life, made millions from his book, but get this, he reverse-dived. He gave away 90% and lived on 10%. Now pause. Can God trust you to do that? Can He trust you to use wealth to heal, not just to flex? This is the test. When your heart starts shifting, from chasing likes to chasing lives, from building an empire to building the kingdom, from what can I gain to whom can I bless? That's not a motivational shift. That's a divine alignment. Let me expose the world's deception. They say, follow your passion and the money will come. But the kingdom says, follow your purpose and eternal wealth will overflow. Big difference. Passion can be selfish. Purpose is sacrificial. Passion says, make me rich. Purpose says, make me useful. And ironically, the ones who pursue usefulness end up managing the richest vineyards. So if right now you've started thinking beyond your own needs, you feel called to serve, create, give, teach, heal, build, not for applause, but for assignment. You're becoming less materialistic, more mission-minded. That's not just spiritual growth. That's preparation for wealth. Because God does not anoint greed. He funds vision. He multiplies resources in the hands of those who would rather feed the 5,000 than hoard fish for themselves. Point 7. You're being trusted with small things first. Heaven is testing your stewardship. Here's a question that will slap your ambition right across the face. Why would God give you millions if you're mismanaging hundreds? Let that sit for a moment. Everyone wants the promotion. Everyone wants the breakthrough. Everyone wants financial overflow. But here's the hard truth. God doesn't promote based on emotion. He promotes based on stewardship. Luke 16 verse 10, NIV says, "Whoever can be trusted with very little can also be trusted with much." Boom. It's not about the amount in your hand, it's about your attitude toward it. Let me break it down. You're praying for a new car, but you treat your old one like a garbage bin on wheels. You want to own a mansion, but can't even clean your rented single room. You're asking God to bless your business with capital, but you eat through every coin instead of budgeting or saving. And you think heaven isn't watching. God is observing every little move. Because how you handle the small is a preview of what you do with the big. Let's hit the scriptures. David was trusted with sheep before he was trusted with soldiers. He didn't treat that role as beneath him. When a lion or bear came to attack his sheep, he risked his life for sheep. And God said, "If you can risk your life for sheep, I can trust you to lead Israel." Elisha was a farmer. He was found plowing oxen. But when Elijah threw his mantle on him, Elisha didn't hesitate. He didn't say, "Let me first see the paycheck or the glam." He sacrificed what he had and followed because he was already faithful with what was in his hands. Even Jesus, the Son of God, started in a carpenter's workshop. Before feeding thousands, before raising the dead, before preaching on hillsides, he was faithful in obscurity. And when the time was right, boom. Heavenly promotion. Let me go deep with this truth. Wealth is not just a blessing, it's a trust. If God sees that you are tithing faithfully from the little you earn, you're helping others even when your own pockets are tight. You're budgeting, sowing, saving, and sacrificing without drama or attention. Then heaven says, "Now that is someone I can trust with more." Wealth exposes the real you. If you're selfish, it amplifies it. If you're generous, it expands it. If you're careless, it magnifies it. So God tests us with the little not to deprive us, but to prepare us. He wants to make sure you can say no to impulse. Say yes to delayed gratification. Manage your emotions. Honor your obligations. Stay grateful even when it's not glamorous. Because here's the principle. What you do with a seed determines whether you'll ever hold a harvest. So if lately you've found yourself being challenged to manage better, called to account for small decisions, confronted about your habits with money, time, energy, and priorities, then congratulations. You're in wealth training. And if you pass the test of the little, you'll graduate into the overflow. Point 8. You're becoming a channel, not just a container. God blesses you to bless others. Listen closely. God doesn't pour wealth into people just to store it, He pours it into them so it can flow through them. Genesis 12 verse 2, NIV, God tells Abraham, "I will bless you, and you will be a blessing." Read that again, slowly. "I will bless you, and you will be a blessing." That means, you're not just the destination of the blessing. You're the pipeline. You're the distribution center. You're the bank of heaven for the people around you. Let me paint a picture. There are two bodies of water in the Holy Land. The Sea of Galilee, which is fresh, full of life, fish, and flowing water. The Dead Sea, which is salty, stagnant, and lifeless. Both receive water from the same Jordan River. But what's the difference? The Sea of Galilee gives as it receives. The Dead Sea only takes, but never gives. Result: one is alive. The other is dead. That's exactly how people are with money. Some keep everything. Hoard everything. They clutch every coin like Gollum holding the ring. In the Lord of the Rings, my precious. And their soul starts to rot with greed, fear, and anxiety. But the ones who say, "Lord, if you give it to me, you can spend it through me," those are the people God makes into millionaires with impact. Let's go Bible. In 2 Kings 4, a widow was broke and about to lose her sons. Elisha told her to pour the little oil she had into jars. As long as she kept pouring, the oil kept flowing. But when she ran out of containers, the oil stopped. What's the lesson? God's provision flows in response to your willingness to pour. Let's go real life. Ever notice that generous people always seem to have enough? That person who always helps others with food, fuel, or school fees somehow. God keeps refilling them. It's like heaven knows this one doesn't block the blessing. Let's keep it moving through them. Here's a deep truth. Containers eventually get full. Channels never stop flowing. If you're just a container, you'll reach a point where you say, "That's enough. I've got my house, my car, my savings, I'm good." But if you're a channel, you say, "Lord, who can I bless next? Who's hungry? Who needs school fees? Whose mission can I fund?" And God looks down and says, "That's the kind of person I can keep blessing. Because they won't block the pipeline." If lately you feel a burden to give, even when you're not rich yet, a burning desire to help people rise, that strange generosity that doesn't make sense to others, congratulations. That's God transforming your heart from consumer to distributor. He's prepping you not just to be wealthy, but to be useful with wealth. He's trusting you with others' destinies. He's enlarging your spiritual wallet. Because you're not building a dam, you're becoming a river. Point 9. You're attracting attacks, resistance, and strange opposition because the enemy smells the oil before it falls. Let's be honest. You thought you were just being unlucky. You thought people were just jealous. You thought doors were closing because of timing. But what if I told you? The warfare you're facing is actually spiritual evidence that heaven has placed a target on your destiny. Marked wealthy, anointed, and dangerous. You see, Satan doesn't attack people going nowhere. He's not worried about the lazy, the lukewarm, or the indifferent. He panics when you start aligning. He sends storms when you start growing. He unleashes people, confusion, delay, and drama the moment he senses the anointing is about to break forth. 1 Corinthians 16 verse 9, KJV, Paul said, "For a great door and effectual is opened unto me, and there are many adversaries." Boom. Every great door attracts great devils. Every elevation comes with opposition. The warfare is often the confirmation. Let's take it biblical. Job was the wealthiest man in the East. But Satan accused him before God. Why? Because he had wealth, favor, and divine protection. The devil saw what Job had and what he represented and couldn't handle it. So he tried to shake his faith, steal his joy, wreck his family. But guess what? After the storm, God gave Job double for his trouble. Joseph dreamed of greatness, then all hell broke loose. Betrayed. Abandoned. Imprisoned. Why? Because his dream was a threat to the enemy. But that opposition was just the fast track to Pharaoh's palace. Let's flip it to real life. Have you ever suddenly lost friends when you started taking your purpose seriously? Faced resistance at work just when a promotion was near? Got hit with discouragement or spiritual attacks right after you started sowing, giving, or praying for your financial breakthrough? That's not coincidence. That's spiritual warfare. That's Satan smelling the oil. Before you get the blessing, he tries to get you to quit. But listen, my friend. The enemy attacks what he cannot control and fears what he cannot stop. If God has destined you to be a kingdom financier, a blessing carrier, a legacy builder, the devil will try to distract you with debt, to discourage you with delay, to divide you from helpers, to drain you with anxiety. But here's the good news. Isaiah 54 verse 17. No weapon formed against you shall prosper. He didn't say the weapon wouldn't be formed. He said it won't prosper. Which means you might bend, but you won't break. You might bleed, but you won't bow. So if you're under pressure right now, if you're battling mentally, emotionally, or spiritually, don't retreat, rejoice. Because something big is coming. And the enemy is scared stiff. He knows your blessing will change lives. He knows your wealth will fund ministries. He knows your influence will silence lies and elevate truth. So he throws everything he's got, but it's too late. Because you've been marked by God. Point 10. You feel a deep urge to separate, simplify, and sanctify because the blessing requires a clean vessel. Listen. Before God sends the overflow. Before the divine checks clear. Before the oil runs down your household like the days of Elisha. He cleans the vessel. You don't put pure water in a dirty jar. You don't pour vintage wine into a leaky wineskin. And God doesn't deposit generational wealth into contaminated spirits. 2 Timothy 2 verse 21, KJV says, If a man therefore purge himself from these, he shall be a vessel unto honor, sanctified, and meet for the master's use, and prepared unto every good work. Did you catch that? Sanctified before use. Cleaned before poured into. So when you start sensing a deep urge to break away from certain friendships, a pull to delete things you once tolerated, a holy discomfort with gossip, pride, sexual immorality, bitterness, or compromise, a hunger for prayer, fasting, quiet, and personal retreat. That's not you being extra. That's not you isolating. That's God scrubbing the vessel. Because here's a truth most prosperity preachers won't tell you. God's wealth is weighty. And only sanctified shoulders can carry it. Let's revisit Moses. God didn't give him the blueprint for Israel's liberation until he had 40 years of wilderness detox. He had to be separated from Egypt, both physically and mentally. Why? Because the man who would carry heaven's tablets couldn't still be carrying Egypt's toxins. Esther didn't just walk into the palace. She went through 12 months of purification and preparation. 6 months with oil. 6 months with perfumes. Before she could influence a king and save a nation, she had to be purified from the dust of where she came from. And you? If you want to handle kingdom-level wealth, manage heaven's resources, influence culture, build legacies, break generational poverty, then the cleansing has to come first. The fire comes before the filling. The pruning comes before the fruit. The sanctification comes before the celebration. You will find yourself saying no to shortcuts, avoiding get-rich-quick scams, refusing to compromise your convictions just to rise, walking away from ungodly opportunities even if they promise millions. Why? Because your standard is holiness, not hustle. You understand that. It's better to be broke and clean than rich and rotten. Because eventually, the clean get crowned. Eventually, the purified get promoted. Eventually, those who separate themselves become the Josephs, the Esthers, the Daniels of their generation. And here's the microphone drop. Psalm 24 verses 3-5, NIV. Who may ascend the mountain of the Lord? Who may stand in his holy place? The one who has clean hands and a pure heart, who does not trust in an idol or swear by a false god. They will receive blessing from the Lord and vindication from God their Savior. Yes, blessing is coming. But it will only rest on the sanctified. Now, listen to me and listen with your soul. You are not just another face in the crowd. You are not just another dreamer hoping for some coins to fall from the sky. You are not just some hustler grinding blindly through life. You are wired with purpose, anointed with fire, appointed for overflow. And if God is drawing you into these signs, if He's been exposing you to wealth-building truths, breaking your pride, purging your circles, disrupting your comfort zones, testing your stewardship, birthing generosity, raising opposition, and calling you to sanctification, then congratulations. You're not just being set up for wealth. You're being transformed into someone who can handle it. Because the blessing of God doesn't come to inflate your ego. It comes to ignite your calling. Proverbs 10 verse 22 says, "The blessing of the Lord makes rich, and He adds no sorrow with it." This is not the kind of wealth that chokes your peace or chains your soul. This is kingdom wealth. Wealth that feeds the hungry, builds schools, funds missions, changes nations, breaks curses, writes history. You don't want to be rich just for cars, clothes, and clout. That's empty. You want to be wealthy so that when God says, feed them, you don't reply, let me check my balance. So when God says, build it, you don't say, I need a loan first. So when God says, rescue them, you move like Abraham, fund like David, and give like the widow who had nothing but still outgave the wealthy. Your hands weren't made to beg. Your destiny wasn't designed to struggle forever. You were meant to overflow, to outgive the greedy, to outbuild the wicked, to outlast the storms. But it starts with alignment. It starts with obedience. It starts with faithful stewardship, sanctified living, and surrendered purpose. Let the doubters mock. Let the proud flaunt. Let the selfish boast. But you're different. You're chosen. You're destined. And God is preparing you not just for wealth, but for impact that echoes into eternity. So if this message lit a fire in you, if you saw yourself in these signs, if your spirit whispered, that's me, don't just watch and go, share this. Send it. Live it. Speak it. Walk it. And keep aligning. Because the blessing is coming. And this time, it's not just for you, it's for the world through you. End of message. Microphone down. God up. Let the blessing flow.